Soul Magic Introduction, based on A Treatise in White Magic, also known as The Way of the Disciple, and this video is by Dr. Lisa Love. What is soul magic? The word magic essentially means the power of influencing the course of events by using mysterious or supernatural forces. How then does the soul, a seemingly supernatural force, attempt to influence events in the lives of individuals and throughout the world? This video and those that will follow in this series give a brief overview of how this process of soul magic happens. To let you know, the insights in this video draw from the book A Treatise on White Magic that was written about 100 years ago by a woman known as Alice Bailey. The word white in these books refers to being spiritual, soulful, unselfish, and working for the benefit of all life on this planet. Since the words white magic may not be understood in the same way in our time today, this video series will replace the word white with the word soul. So what is the soul? In calling this process soul magic, we need to understand better what the word soul in this series of videos will mean. Because the title of the series really should have been called Solar Angel Magic, though few people would have understood what that phrase meant, so soul magic was used instead. To overly simplify things, though all humans have a soul, most human beings do not act in a soulful way. They act out of what Alice Bailey calls their personalities, living on the emotional and physical planes, where they approach life in selfish, separative, and tribalistic ways. They want to get the most out of life, especially in the way of money, security, pleasure, sex, and especially the power to get all the money, security, and pleasure and sex they want. And though these personalities may have some intelligence, that intelligence is heavily colored by emotion and desire. If their desires are met, they are up. If their desires are not met, they are down. Life, then, is a roller coaster ride of emotions, taking these people up and down and causing so much emotional turmoil, the capacity to value or acquire soul qualities is limited. Fortunately, at some point, these personalities reach exhaustion and finally seek out the life of the soul. To live that life of the soul, humans have to reach the soul and then become it. Now, the soul of every human is always connected to them, but the soul of that human does not start to take an active interest in that person until they reach what is known as the mental plane. So most of humanity was living on the emotional plane, but as we get on the spiritual path, we start to shift onto the mental plane, which is divided into two sections. The plane of the lower mind, which has 4 subplanes, 1, 2, 3, 4 in it, and the plane of the solar angel, which has 3 subplanes in it. Now, this is a picture of the soul, which we'll see is different than the solar angel. Here we have the words egoic lotus, the soul, and causal body, which all represent the soul at this level. Once someone starts to travel the spiritual path, they become an aspirant. And here we see the aspirant over here in this chart. Now, there is no specification as to what subplane the aspirant is on, but I am theorizing it is at the top of the emotional plane or perhaps the very bottom of the plane of the lower mind. An aspirant is somebody who is still dominated by the material world, but is aspiring to live according to spiritual or soul values. But they fall off the level of spiritual values often. Why? Because their emotions and their desires are still too dominant. But eventually, the motive to live a spiritual life increases, and they become what is known as a probationary disciple in the Bailey teachings, and probationary disciples live on the lower levels of the plane of the lower mind. probationary disciples are taking up the disciplines of spiritual life, but they have to be monitored. They're on probation, so to speak, and they can still too easily fall off the spiritual path. Eventually, though, these probationers will become known as accepting disciples, then pledged disciples, and eventually accepted disciples. All these categories are following spiritual disciplines and living a spiritual life with greater ease. They can still be tempted to fall off, but in general, they're proving that the temptations of living in the world of security and money, pleasure and sex and power will not lead them off the spiritual path. In short, they have become soul-infused, or they're almost soul-infused entirely, and are acting more like what we would call soul-infused personalities. Now, the book, A Treatise on White Magic, is essentially for those who are accepting, pledged, and accepted disciples. Again, they are over here. Once they reach this level, they are close to or moving on to what is known again as the plane of the solar angel. Though the solar angel actually resides on what is known as the intuitional or Buddhic plane, it has its field of major influence, that solar angel, on the first three subplanes of the mental plane. In other words, it is influencing the soul, and then the soul is influencing the personality until the personality becomes soul-infused enough that it too will start to become receptive to the solar angel. And when this receptivity of the increasingly soul-infused personality is taking place, it is then when the first type of soul magic or solar angel magic can begin, where the soul is attempting to get the personality, as first an aspirant, then a probationary disciple, then an accepting, pledged, and accepted disciple, to acquire certain soul-like qualities such as love, wisdom, courage, selflessness, harmlessness, discernment, compassion, goodwill, inclusiveness, non-attachment, a service orientation, and much more. As these soul qualities are embodied, a second type of soul or solar angel magic takes place, where the solar angel, through the vehicle of the soul, is attempting to get the soul-infused personality to become receptive to spiritual ideas that will then be turned into thought forms to help transform the world for the better. So now that you've seen the brief introduction, this Soul Magic series will continue. I invite you to subscribe to this Soul to Spirit YouTube channel and click the bell for alerts so you will learn more about them. And I invite you, as always, to help support this work by becoming a patron at patreon.com/soul2spirit, visiting our website, soul2spirit.com, and again, subscribe, like, comment, share, and hit the bell for alerts so that you can keep aware of all that's going on with us. And finally, as always, thanks for watching.